if Stafford's dead cap hit was not over $30 million, any and all of this Matthew Stafford trade talk, I think, could have some legitimacy to it. From a financial standpoint, for a coach and a GM who were publicly called out by their owner as, hey, we have to contend for
Got
the
your caller.
playoffs this year, it just makes no sense.
I got you. I because of the last part only. To me, that's the one part of
Fair
this
enough.
that is where I know you're right. But like I said, I think someone just threw something to stick to a wall. That's why I can't even justify it with a rumor. But it did make me scratch my head a little bit.
All right. Well, we'll throw it at Pat Kirwan, who joins us now on the Goldberg, New and Abraham Law Firm hotline, goldberg-law.com. Pat's appearance is brought to you courtesy of Pinchers. Pat, you've worked for an owner who was older. You've worked for an owner who doesn't speak out publicly often, but when they do, it obviously got your attention. When you're Quinn and Patricia in Detroit and their owner publicly did what they did a few months ago, if she had not done that, do you think a quarterback would have been in play at 3?
No, I think they've got too many. Here's why. I think the reality is those guys have to win, and they know it. 2, they have a lot of other needs. And as coaches like to say all the time, especially guys that are my friends that are in trouble, they always like to say when they draft these quarterbacks when they're in halfway down the quicksand, I'm drafting this guy for the next coach. And they know they're never going to get him right and moving along and winning a lot of games in whatever time they have left. So I don't think they were ever going to do it. I think the best thing to do is to move down and maybe multiple times. You know, we had a little mock draft last week, and that's what I did. I moved down twice, and it was easy with Detroit to move down. You got a quarterback spot that's for sale, and you might have a second quarterback spot. If you were smart enough to sell it to Miami first and move there, then you got the Chargers and you got Jacksonville as 2 potential teams that might call you for a second move. Charlie Casserly, a number of years ago, moved down like 3 times in the first round. And I think Detroit's perfectly situated to do it. And I don't think anything the owner said, I think those guys know they got to win. And they're not going to waste their time taking a rookie quarterback.
Okay, Pat, you have been focused on this for a while, and I have other questions, but I do want to get to this first because you've said for weeks, because of the way this draft is going to be, you're going to deal with who you know. So if you're the Lions and you think that Miami's the spot, how soon between now and next a week from Thursday do we have to have this deal done? Do I have to have it done the day before the draft? I mean, how soon do you want this deal done so that when I pick third, I can just call the league and get the trade? Because we all know timing is going to be of the essence when it comes to the draft on Thursday night.
Yeah, right after Washington's pick. I mean, you're gonna come up with the structure of the deal. 3 of us have talked about this 100 times, but I don't really know what Cincinnati, and we think we know what Cincinnati and Washington are going to do, but there's no reason to be preemptive before they go because you could trigger something you don't want to trigger. So I think as soon as Washington says Chase Young, then it takes 10 seconds to orchestrate a deal that you speculated was going to happen, and you just send it in, and the trade is made. That's how I see it happening. And those guys know each other pretty well. So would you do it before Washington and Cincinnati pick their players just in case? There's no reason to sit here and say, I know for sure they're taking Chase Young. Like, I like Chase Young, but go watch the Michigan game at the end of the year and tell me that you saw an elite Bruce Smith kind of pass rusher. I promise you didn't. But he'll go second, but I don't know that he's Superman.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I didn't think he was special against Clemson either. And to me, you know, when you judge players that you're going to take in the top 5, don't watch the tape against the middle rung Power 5 school against a guy who's not going to play on Sundays. You got to watch like 2 games worth of tape, period. The likelihood is Chase Young only went up against 3 guys last year who are ever going to get a check from the NFL. I mean, those are the games you got to watch.
I agree with you, David. And the smart guys in this league do that, and they watch specifically against certain guys. So immediately this kid, and I like him. I don't want to bash him here, but all of a sudden, coaches are famous for this, and so are media people. He's better than the Bosa's. I don't know about that. Young Bosa was pretty good in San Francisco, and the other guy's down there in Charger country, and he's doing pretty well as a Bosa should. But so he might be great. But I got done watching that Michigan game for 3 times. I finally sent the tape over to my brother, who played in the Big Ten, who's been a high school coach for 30 years and did a lot of work for me in scouting. And I said, just yesterday, I said, Jimmy, I want you to watch Chase Young. I'm not telling you one thing. He goes, I watched all the Big Ten games. He's great. I said, just watch this game and grade every play. So he calls me last night and he goes, I hate you. I never. Hey, I'm telling you. So I always say this to answer Mark's question. If I'm Detroit, I'm making my move after the pick of the Redskins. Because the Redskins might say, we'd like to take Young, but I sure would like to get an extra pick first. Maybe we'll deal with Miami. And I'll go to your favorite person in the world, David Gettleman. He always says the same thing when he says Barkley, and it makes the most sense. I'm not taking anybody in the top 5 that I don't believe can wear a gold jacket or a yellow jacket, whatever you want to call it. And it's really a good standard. And you know what? If you don't have anybody that fits that standard, move down. That's what I say.
Pat, comments came out yesterday from some GMs that Tua had some undisclosed wrist problems. We've talked about this a lot. There's unknowns. There's no physicals. How much will teams take that as gospel, if you will? And how many teams do you think are just scratching Tua right off their board?
I don't think anyone's scratching him off the board. I do. Your question's a valid one, like how far down would you put him? I don't think anyone said remove his name from the board. Now, would they put him in the middle of the first round? Yeah, like guys love to leave a name on the board with a first-round grade and then take him in the second round. Now, I don't think that's going to happen to him, but I know one team, they'd never take a guy, especially character guys. They'd always move him down to like spot 20. So now they're in the middle of the second round, and they go, oh, look at this. There's still a first-round guy there, and then they take him. So I do think some will move him down. I don't think the workout yesterday with Trent Dilfer in an indoor facility is going to convince anyone one way or the other. The film tells you what you need to know. The medical history is real, but it is rumor season, and I think things get said all the time between now and the draft to create a sense of moving down. And maybe the guy, maybe Miami wasn't taking him anyway. But it'll appear, if they take someone else, that, they were worried about the wrist as much as everything else that's wrong with them.
Yeah, I think, quite frankly, somebody's planting that, hoping that Tua will drop a spot or 2 further than maybe he will, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But, all right, between the Dolphins and the Chargers, who are drafting right now at 5 or 6 before either one makes a trade, which one of the 2 do you think is more likely to not take a quarterback?
See, the answer to that question, as I see it, is I think Chargers are the ones that could say, especially if Miami takes the guy the Chargers love.
Right.
That changes things. So without moving around, I think that becomes the answer. Your question becomes the Chargers, because they might have a commitment to Herbert, as an example, and lo and behold, Miami takes Herbert. And the Chargers now turn and say, you know what, why don't we take Easton in the second round or something to that effect? Or skip it for now. But neither team, I'll answer it this way, neither team can afford not to take one. We're in a world where the most important position will always be quarterback, and they don't have an important player at the position. So they really do need to take one. It's the Pete Carroll rule. You just keep taking them until you find one.
Yep.
You don't worry about making mistakes. You just keep doing it.
Pat, Bill O'Brien is a friend of yours. He made another trade. And there isn't anybody out there that seems to be able to justify this trade being worth anything. I will give it to you open. You explain it to me from Bill O'Brien's standpoint, because it looks right now that three drunks at the den of the bar could run the Texans better than Bill O'Brien is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are, and Bill's opened himself up to those criticisms and those kind of reactions to him. This is not because he's my friend, but it'll all be proven in the win-loss column. If he has given away his football team and their 7-9 outfit next year, then it was proven that everyone's instincts about what Bill's doing were accurate. If he lands up winning the division again, and who knows if that's going to happen, then people will say, didn't see it coming. The guy is smarter than we thought. So I can't really judge that. Would I have done some of the things he's done? No. I wouldn't have. I would not have gotten rid of Hopkins. I would have figured it out. But that doesn't mean I would have figured it out. Just I would have attempted to do that. And so, they got themselves in a cap situation that they had to react. We discussed this between the quarterback and the left tackle, and what Hopkins wanted apparently, and probably wasn't going to play. Although I don't believe anyone doesn't show up. You had to make some financial decisions. Now he gets this guy 4 years, and it's a pretty cheap deal. If you figure Cooks for $8 million, I wouldn't have done it, but. But let me just say something about the Rams, because I woke up this morning thinking more about the Rams than anything else. Now, it wasn't very long ago they almost won a Super Bowl, right?
Right.
February of 2019. So since then, they've lost or surrendered or backed themselves out of guys contractually. 13 starters plus a kicker, call it 14 starters, are gone from the Super Bowl team. Cooks, Saffold, Sullivan, Gurley, Sue, Fowler, Littleton, Barron, Peters, Talib. They were all starters in the Super Bowl. Oh, and Zerline. It's amazing that at this short period of time, and it goes back to the three of us talking about what were they doing when they were buying the Sues and the Cooks of the world. They were making a run to open up that L.A. market and get people to buy a bunch of PSLs and everything else. And now, in a blink of an eye, 13 starters out of 22 are gone. That's 63% of your team.
It is remarkable. And we had commented last year that the Rams had pushed all their chips in. It was a big roll of the dice in 2018. And they came up just short. And they may pay for it cap-wise and draft pick-wise for a while. Pat, we're pressed for time.
I think the cap is they're going to be hit for $42 million. I think this year.
Yes, yes,
right off the top, 42.
Yes, yeah, their dead money between Cooks and Gurley alone is over $30 million just for those two players. So not only have they gotten rid of all that talent, but they also have over 20% of their cap that they can't use to replace that talent with. Pat, just a gut feeling. The Patriots have a first-round pick and no second. So they're at 23. They got a couple guys they'd really love. If they're not there, if you're New England, would you rather have the 23rd pick with no second-rounder or trade out, say, with the Colts, who have 34 and 44? What would you value more? The 23rd pick with no second-rounder or the 2 second-rounders?
I would rather have 2 second-rounders. And I said this the other day, Tuesday, to you guys. The way they rewrote the option year on the first round, you're going to see a lot of teams not exercising the option. Because after 3 years, if you exercise the option, this is for your listeners, you guys know this, then it's guaranteed. There was always a parachute out of that option. You'd put it on them with no-brainer. And then at the end of the 4th year, before we got into the 5th year, you backed out of the guy, and you were done with it. or you traded him. But now the guaranteed lock after 3 is pretty scary. So I don't see the bottom of the first round having the old value that it used to have. It was a great place to take a quarterback and all that business, but I would rather have 2, David, 2 in the second round. And for years, that was the Bill Belichick model. I mean, we talked about it years ago. I mean, he always seemed to land up with a multiple second-round pick. That's probably what I would do.
Just throwing that out there. I think that's something to look for. Maybe Indy, who, remember, traded away their first-round pick for Buckner. Do they offer up their 2 seconds to move to 23 and the Patriots back out? Pat, as always, love talking to you. Hope you and your family are still safe and well, and try to have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, guys. It's it's quite quiet around here, but it's a good time to get ready for the draft.
Got that right, which is less than 2 weeks away. Pat Kirwan joining us on the Goldberg, New and Abraham Law Firm hotline. His weekly appearances brought to you courtesy of Pinchers. From Tampa to Key West and many points in between. Order your takeout from Pinchers, where you can't fake fresh.